Hi, this is the Observations deep dive into Peter Zeihan's prediction that globalization will end and why he's profoundly wrong. If you like deep dives like this, then you got to see the upcoming deep dives I'm going to have. One about what China's real goal is in the South China Sea, and the other is an AI war game of a Chinese invasion of Taiwan. I am particularly excited about the war game. Never tried that before. The AI will have the permission to use all the weapons it knows China has and in any way it wants, both tactically and strategically, while I do my best to keep Taiwan alive. I don't know who will win, but it should be fun. Okay, now about Peter Zeihan. Peter isn't some random internet pundit. He is one of the most respected geopolitical analysts of the world. He's the author of multiple best selling books, including The End of the World is Just the Beginning and Disunited Nations. He's consulted for major corporations and government agencies, speaks at international conferences, and has built a reputation for making bold predictions about global trends. When Zeihan analyzes demographic shifts, or energy markets, or regional conflicts, serious people listen. His work is well researched, his arguments logically structured, and he doesn't hide behind academic jargon or political correctness. When Zeihan makes a case, he lays out his evidence systematically and lets you judge for yourself. This intellectual honesty is both rare and admirable. However, his thinking on globalization is fundamentally flawed. I'll give you 9 reasons why he is wrong. By the way, if you like more single issue deep dives like these, please hit the like button and subscribe to encourage more content like this. You may also find everything we do on Patreon. Okay, now to start, let's review globalization. Let's be clear about globalization. It is the integration of world economies through trade, investment, and the flow of goods, services, and capital and information across borders. This isn't a recent phenomenon that started just after World War II and Bretton Woods. Globalization began during the Age of Discovery in the 15th and 16th century when global maritime trade routes replaced the old overland Silk Road networks. European ships connected the Americas, Africa, Asia, and Europe in the first truly global trading system. What we call modern globalization is simply the latest evolution of a process that's been changing and accelerating for over 500 years. Now for Zeihan's thesis. Zeihan argues that globalization is ending because two fundamental pillars are collapsing. First, America is withdrawing from its role as global hegemon and will stop protecting international trade routes with its navy. Second, demographic collapse. Aging populations with too few workers will force countries to focus internally rather than trade globally. He thinks of globalization only in terms of the post World War II Bretton Woods world, not in terms of its more general reality. His conclusion that we're returning to a world of isolated regional economies where countries must produce their own goods, grow their own food, and fight their own battles, it's a compelling argument, but it's also completely wrong. Now, why is he wrong? Well, here are 9 devastating problems. First, corporate nationality and elite royalty are meaningless fictions. Shell Oil recently moved its headquarters from the Netherlands to the UK. Did anyone notice? Did anyone care? Stock prices barely moved. Shareholders yawned. BP bought Amoco, formerly Standard Oil of Indiana, for $48 billion. dollars. And that Chicago based American oil company is now owned by a British company. Again, nobody cared. Because everyone understands that corporate nationality is just paperwork. But the fiction grows much deeper than headquarters. When you buy Toyota stock, someone in Delhi is buying General Motors stock, someone in Singapore is buying Shell, someone in Berlin is buying Apple. Every major corporation is owned by a random mix of individuals from every country on earth. There is no more American or Japanese or German or British companies anymore. They're just globally owned enterprises that happen to be headquartered somewhere. The same transformation has happened to the people running the systems. In 1806, for instance, American elites were genuinely American. Boston merchants owned American ships, employed American crews, and shipped American goods. So when they decided to go to war to stop the Barbary pirates, it was really it was an American decision. In 1900, Carnegie, Ford, Rockefeller, J.P. Morgan, they were all American. Their companies and their customers were American. Their interests were America's interests. But today's American elites are really global citizens with American passports. BlackRock executives manage global portfolios for global clients. Apple executives profit from global supply chains. When these people make foreign policy recommendations, they're not thinking about America's interests. They're protecting their global business interests. The same management runs these companies, the same global shareholders own them, and the same gas comes out of the same pumps. Their interests are those that support their international interests, which are not America's interests. Second, economic nationalism becomes self-defeating. If America attacks Toyota as a foreign company, it's really attacking a company owned by millions of Americans through their 401k plans. CalPERS, the California Public Employees Retirement System, owns billions in foreign stocks. Teacher retirement funds across the United States hold Toyota, Samsung, and other foreign companies. Police pensions funds in every major city own shares in foreign companies. Japan retaliates against GM, it's hurting Japanese citizens who own GM stock. This creates an impossible political situation. Economic nationalism requires governments to tell their own citizens we're going to destroy the value of your retirement accounts to prove a political point. No democratic government can survive that kind of conversation. When senators realize their constituents' 401ks hold billions in foreign stocks, suddenly those anti-globalization speeches become much harder to give. You can't wage war against your own people's retirement accounts and expect to get reelected. Third, foreign policy was never democratic. Zeihan assumes America will choose to withdraw from global leadership. But when did Americans ever choose global leadership in the first place? The Bretton Woods system? Never voted on. The global military bases? Never voted on. Naval production of trade routes? Never voted on. America's foreign policy was against the Barbary pirates in 1801. America's first foreign war was against the Barbary pirates. Most Americans couldn't find the Barbary pirate coast on the map, but Thomas Jefferson fought the war anyway. The Korean War? Truman just did it. The Vietnam escalation? Johnson and Nixon made those decisions on their own. The Iraq invasion by Bush decided that. Congress rubber stamped. Libya, Obama didn't even ask Congress. Bosnia and Kosovo, Clinton bypassed Congress entirely. For over 230 years, America's foreign policy has been made by elites for elite interests, regardless of public opinion. The same pattern repeats. Presidents decide, Congress goes along, the public finds out when it's already happening. Or maybe never. Zeihan's entire thesis depends on a democratic process determining foreign policy, which has never happened. Fourth, foreign policy is made by and for global elites. This is the devastating conclusion. The same people who created the global system still control America's foreign policy. Look at who actually makes the decisions. Defense secretaries rotate between the Pentagon and arms manufacturers with global operations. James Mattis sat on the board of General Dynamics before becoming defense secretary. Treasury secretaries come from Goldman Sachs, which operates in every major financial center worldwide. Trade representatives leave government to go work for a multinational firm representing foreign corporations. Henry Kissinger spent decades on corporate boards spanning multiple countries while advising presidents. The Council on Foreign Relations is funded by multinational corporations. Think tanks writing foreign policy papers are sponsored by companies with global supply chains. When these people recommend protecting American interests, they're really protecting their own global business interests. BlackRock manages $10 trillion in global assets. When their executives meet with Treasury officials, are they thinking about American workers or global portfolio returns? When Apple executives advise on China policy, are they considering American manufacturing or protecting their Chinese supply chains? I think the answer is obvious. These decision makers have no incentive to dismantle a system that makes them wealthy, regardless of what American voters think. And since foreign policy was never democratic anyway, public opinion is virtually irrelevant. By the way, if you're enjoying my analysis, please hit those like and subscribe buttons. That will help get this in front of more people and get them thinking about these kinds of issues. Thanks. Fifth, legal entanglement makes withdrawal impossible. The global economy is bound together by thousands of international agreements, trade deals, investment treaties, and legal contracts spanning decades. These aren't suggestions, they're binding legal obligations with massive penalty clauses. Countries just can't withdraw without facing crushing legal and financial consequences, or their companies facing those legal and financial consequences. Breaking these contracts would cost more in profits and national isolation than any costs in maintaining them. Economic nationalism becomes national suicide. Sixth, global institutions are now permanent and self-sustaining. Zeihan assumes that if America withdraws from global leadership, the institutional framework of globalization will collapse. This is completely wrong. The United Nations, NATO, the World Bank, International Monetary Fund, the G7, the World Trade Organization, these institutions have evolved far beyond American control. They now serve the interests of all their members, not just the United States. Even if America completely abandoned these organizations tomorrow, the other 190 countries would keep them running because they solve real problems that every nation faces. Who wants to return to a world with no international law, no coordinated defense arrangements, no global financial system, and no trade dispute solutions? Nobody. These institutions have become global public good that everyone depends on. Europe would gladly run NATO without America. As a matter of fact, they're moving in that direction right now. China and Europe would manage the World Bank and IMF if the United States bows out. The UN would continue mediating conflicts and enforcing the law of the sea because every nation benefits from peaceful dispute resolution. Zeihan treats these American institutions, but they're not really American anymore. They're global institutions that happen to be influenced by America. And that influence is decreasing. Remove American influence and you get a different management, but not institutional collapse. Seventh, financial entanglement runs too deep. The global banking system uses integrated clearing systems, currency swaps, and real-time settlement networks that operate 24/7 across time zones. SWIFT banking connects every major economy. When Russia was partially cut off from SWIFT, it crippled their ability to conduct international business within days. But here's where Zeihan misses. Even Russia couldn't be completely isolated at first because European banks still needed to buy Russian energy. They are getting slowly weaned off, and Russia's getting more isolated, and that will probably become total in the near future. But the system is so interconnected that isolating one major economy hurts everyone else. International bonds and derivatives create trillion-dollar webs of mutual dependency. American pension funds own European government bonds. Chinese banks hold U.S. treasuries. Japanese security companies have invested in American corporate debt, etc., etc., etc. Trying to go national would mean unwinding these financial relationships, which would trigger a cascading crisis. When Lehman Brothers collapsed in 2008, it nearly brought down the entire global financial system because of these interconnections. Now imagine trying to deliberately sever a major economy from these networks. The cure would be far worse than any disease. Eighth, digital integration makes isolation impossible. Internet commerce, cloud computing, global supply chain software, and real-time trading systems operating across borders 24/7. You cannot run a modern economy nowadays without these digital systems. These systems are inherently global. The technological infrastructure of the modern world makes 1940-style isolation literally impossible. Ninth, we already have empirical proof. Donald Trump tried exactly what Zeihan predicts: tariffs to bring manufacturing home and reduce dependence on global trade. The result, and that's still playing out, and it's going to get a lot worse, by the way. American consumers are paying higher prices, and they're going to get much, much higher. Supply chains have been routed through other countries, and that process is ongoing, and its impact is going to get worse and worse. America Exporters have faced retaliation, and the trade deficit is actually growing. The trade deficit for the first half of this year has gone up. The goods and services increased $175 billion, or 50.4% from the same period last year. Trump's experiment proved that 1890 style trade policy, it just doesn't work in a globalized economy. Peter Zeihan's deglobalization thesis falls on every level. Corporate nationality is fiction. Ownership is global. Economic nationalism is self-defeating. Foreign policy is not democratic. Elites are globally aligned. Global institutions are permanent and self-sustaining. Legal systems are integrated. Financial systems are interwoven. Digital systems span borders. And we have empirical proof that attempts to reverse globalization fail in practice while making everyone poorer. Zeihan is waiting for a democratic decision that will never happen, made by elites who benefit from the current system to dismantle structures that are legally, financially, technologically, and institutionally impossible to unravel. Okay, my final thought. Globalization has been accelerating for 500 years because it makes economic sense. It won't end because Peter Zeihan thinks it should, any more than an internet will disappear because some people prefer writing letters in cursive. Globalization is too embedded to unwind without unraveling the modern world. And that's why, despite his clarity and intelligence, Peter Zeihan's deglobalization thesis is fundamentally flawed. Now, despite my disagreement, I admire and respect Peter Zeihan immensely. He has made geopolitics understandable to more people. It has become a common topic of discussion. In the end, it is not important whether Peter or I am right. What is important is that people like you think about these kinds of issues and come to your own conclusions. On globalization, you may agree with me, or with Peter, or better yet, come to your own conclusion. If you enjoyed this analysis, please go to my channel and view my other deep dives and watch our world briefs on geopolitical issues that are published several times a week. You can access all our videos that are curated on Patreon. Please like and subscribe. You know how that helps with the algorithm. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear what you think. Thanks a lot.